This is an inspiring story of two tiny birds' bravery and empathy in raising an unexpected offspring. Once upon a time, in a world where feathers were out and hair was in, there lived three birds, a proud parent bird and two little chicks. They lived in a cozy nest high up in a tree, where they spent their days chirping and singing and exploring the world around them. Life was good for the little bird family until one day, the parent bird laid an egg that was larger than any egg they had ever seen before. It was a beautiful egg, with a shiny, smooth surface and a warm, comforting glow. But as they looked at it more closely, they realized that it was also a problem. It was so large, in fact, that they couldn't figure out how to keep it warm. They tried everything they could think of to keep the egg warm. They even asked the other birds in the area for help, but nobody had any good ideas. The little chicks were worried. They knew that eggs needed to be kept warm in order to hatch, and they didn't want their sibling to be born into a cold world. They decided that they needed to come up with a plan. After a lot of brainstorming and discussion, the little chicks came up with an idea. They suggested that they take turns carrying the egg on their backs until it hatched. The parent bird was skeptical at first, but decided to let them give it a try. So, the little chicks took turns carrying the egg on their backs as they went about their daily business. They went to the market, they visited their friends, and they even went swimming in the lake with the egg on their backs. At first, it was difficult. The egg was heavy and cumbersome, and they had to be very careful not to drop it or bump it into anything. But as time went on, they got used to the extra weight and learned to balance themselves accordingly. As they went about their daily lives, the little chicks felt a sense of purpose and responsibility that they had never felt before. They were the protectors of their sibling, the ones who would do anything to keep them safe and warm. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, but still, the egg had not hatched. The little chicks were starting to get discouraged, but they refused to give up. They continued to take turns carrying the egg, even when it seemed like it would never hatch. One day, while the little chicks were out exploring, they stumbled upon a group of wise old owls. The owls were known for their wisdom and knowledge, and the little chicks hoped that they might have some advice on how to help their egg hatch. The owls listened patiently as the little chicks explained their situation. When they were finished, the owls huddled together and whispered for a few moments before turning back to the little chicks. "We have heard of an old ritual that might help," said the oldest owl. "It involves exposing the egg to the moonlight on the night of the full moon." The little chicks were skeptical but decided to give it a try. They carefully carried the egg out into the open and placed it under the light of the full moon. As they watched, they saw the egg begin to glow and vibrate. As the egg began to crack open, the little chicks gathered around it with excitement and anticipation. They were curious to see what kind of bird would emerge from the egg, especially since it had taken so much effort to keep it warm and safe. To their surprise, as the shell finally gave way, they saw that the creature inside was not a bird at all. It was furry and had 4 legs, a long tail, and a wet nose. It was a baby mammal. At first, the little chicks were shocked and didn't know what to do. They had never seen a creature like this before. But as they looked closer, they saw that the baby mammal was just as helpless and vulnerable as any bird chick, and they knew that they needed to take care of it just as they would their own sibling. So, they took turns carrying the baby mammal on their backs just like they had carried the egg. They took it with them as they went about their daily lives, introducing it to all their bird friends and showing it the world. As the days went by, the little chicks learned more and more about the baby mammal. They discovered that it was called a kitten and that it needed milk to survive. So, they took it to the market and bought milk for it, carefully feeding it and watching over it with love and devotion. The parent bird was surprised and a little bit confused by the situation, but they saw how well the little chicks were taking care of the kitten, and they were grateful for their kindness and compassion. As the weeks passed, the kitten grew stronger and more playful. It would chase after bugs and leaves, and it loved to curl up and sleep on the warm feathers of its bird siblings. The little chicks were proud of themselves for taking care of such a special creature, and they knew that they had formed a bond that would last a lifetime. Eventually, the time came when the little chicks had to say goodbye to their furry sibling. The kitten was now big and strong enough to live on its own, and it was time for it to go out into the world and explore. The little chicks were sad to see it go, but they knew that they had given it a good start in life. They watched as it scampered away into the distance, its little tail waving in the breeze, and they knew that they would never forget the time they had spent together. As the cat went away, the little chick looked up to the sky and saw a shooting star. It was the first time they had ever seen one, and they made a wish upon it. The little chick wished for adventure, for excitement, for a life beyond the safety and comfort of their cozy nest. They had always been curious about the world outside, and now they felt a burning desire to explore it. The next morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, the little chick woke up early and decided to set out on an adventure. They said goodbye to their parents and sibling, promising to return someday, and began to journey down the tree. As they made their way through the forest, the little chick encountered all kinds of creatures, some friendly, some not so much. They saw towering trees, sparkling rivers, and vast meadows filled with flowers. They tasted delicious berries and felt the sun on their feathers. As the days turned into weeks, the little chick grew bolder and more adventurous. One creature turned out to be a giant tortoise who welcomed the little bird into its mouth as a friendly gesture. From then on, one of the birds lived comfortably in the creature's mouth and enjoyed the unique perspective of the world. The other chick continued to venture even farther. He climbed mountains, crossed raging rivers and explored hidden caves. Chick learned to fly higher and faster than ever before, and felt the wind in their hair. One day, as the little chick was soaring high above the clouds, he saw something incredible. It was a city unlike anything they had ever seen before. It was full of tall buildings, bustling streets, and thousands of creatures, all going about their daily lives. As the little chick soared closer and closer to the city, he spotted a window in one of the tall buildings. He decided to fly closer and investigate, curious about what was happening inside. As the chick peered through the window, he saw you sitting there, listening to a story about a little bird. The bird watched as you listened intently, imagining yourself in the story. Suddenly, you turned and looked out the window, and your eyes met the little chick's. You both stared at each other for what felt like an eternity, sharing a moment of understanding and wonder. Eventually, you both grew tired and drifted off to sleep, each dreaming about the hairy, exciting world that awaited you. In your dreams, you explored new places and met new creatures, living a life that was both thrilling and full of adventure. And even though you were worlds apart, you both knew that your paths would cross again one day. You knew that you would meet again, perhaps in a place just as magical and wondrous as the city that the little chick had discovered. But for now, you both rested peacefully, dreaming of the many possibilities that lay ahead. Subscribing and liking will bring good dreams to the sleeping bird.